Promote me but won't bump up my hourly wage? Sure thing, I'll just use your rules to give myself a 50% pay bump, by user interested observer 20. This happened in a company I worked at over a decade ago. I was a technician working on large machines, we had numerous clients and were assigned to a given site. The site I worked on was across a border so I couldn't live near it, and had an hour commute each way every day. I got no expenses or mileage for this because it was my assigned site. After working for this company for a while I got promoted to stop doing routine maintenance and work on more complex projects. Most of these projects were on a site near where I lived so that suited me just fine. However, the company told me they didn't have any budget to increase my wage, which is where the malicious compliance came in. I combed through their rules and regs as well as my contract, and found that if you had to travel to a site that was not your assigned one, you got paid as if you had driven from your assigned site to whatever other one you were working on. My assigned site was classified as being 1.5 hours from the site that I was doing most of my work on, so I was allowed claim those 1.5 hours as hours worked on my timesheet. So every day I would put down 1.5 hours commute there, 1.5 hours commute home, and 8 hours regular work. Anything over 8 hours worked a day was paid at OT rates, so for those 3 hours commute I was getting paid 4.5 hours. Because my contract said my assigned site was Site A, and I was mostly working at Site B, there was nothing they could do about it and my country has pretty decent employee protections so I'd have had to agree to a contract change, which I obviously was not going to. They told me numerous times they were going to change my assigned site but until the day I quit they were never able to. The length of my commute most days was 10 to 15 minutes each way. TLDR, I used the company rules to get paid an extra 4.5 hours each day for driving for about 25 minutes. Tell your boss you're quitting, by user Sweet Sophie Brown. This isn't my story, but my mother's. She died recently at the age of 89, and my sister and I were reminiscing. This is one of our favorite stories involving our mother. My brothers called her V because her first name begins with V, so I'll refer to her as V. This happened many years ago, about the time I graduated from high school. V had taken a job, her first since she and my dad got married, in a public kindergarten. Now my dad was always a bit of a bully, especially towards my mother. My dad was not a nice person, and that's a whole story in itself. V had survived ovarian cancer at the age of 33, so she was probably about 38-39 when this happened. Now my dad insisted that if she was going to hold down a job, she still had to do all her chores when she got home, cooking, cleaning, laundry etc. I can't remember exactly what prompted the argument about her chores, but something didn't get done that he expected and demanded that she do. He informed her that she would tell her boss that she was quitting when she went back to work the next day. Before he left for work the next day, he reminded her that she was to tell her boss that she was quitting. Cue malicious compliance. I loved my mom. She went to work that morning, stopped at her boss's office, and said these exact words, "My husband said to tell you that I was quitting," and then moseyed on to her classroom. A few minutes later, her very puzzled boss popped in and asked her if she was serious. She said no, but my husband told me to tell you I was quitting, so I did. And no, she didn't quit her job until she was good and ready, several years later. Edit, I can't believe how this has blown up. Thanks to everyone for all the upvotes and awards. Several people have asked for info about my dad, so I'm going to make another post about some of his shenanigans. Thank you all again. You wanna enter my room without knocking because you're my parent? Okay, by user McDonald's shower fries. This story begins when I was 13, F. I am now 18F. We had recently moved to a new house at this point and my door no longer had a lock on it. Because of this, I requested my mom and my stepdad knock before entering to avoid any awkward scenes. No dice. My stepdad's words were, "I'm your parent so I don't need to knock. What are you hiding?" This made 13-year-old me very angry as I cared about my privacy a lot. I went to my dad's the weekend after and he said this to me, that sparked inspiration. If you don't want your stepdad to enter your room, make him never want to enter your room without knocking again. Cue the MC. When 13-year-old me got home from school one day, I proceeded to strip. I sat on my bed playing my 3DS and waited for the moment to come. Of course, about 30 minutes into Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, my stepdad barges in. "Hey, I need you to take out the what the fuck." He slammed the door at that point. "Why the fuck aren't you wearing clothes?" 13-year-old me, being a smartass, decided to say, well, it is very hot in here. I'd like to point out at this point that I live in a southern state of the US and it gets very hot during most months, and I did ask that you knock. Obviously, knocking was a frequent thing for every single room in the house at that point. And oh yeah, my mom bought me a hook lock for my door after that. Sorry if this was short, I have more stories but I figured my first should be something I'm sure we've all gone through at some point. Edit. Wow, I did not expect this many people to see this. I don't know whether to feel embarrassed or proud, lol. To clarify, because someone asked and I realize it could have caused confusion, no, it wasn't the original Pokemon Stadium, it was called something and then Pokemon Stadium. Maybe Ultra Pokemon Stadium? Something along those lines. And also, no, my stepfather never had any sexual reasons for this, my entire life he just enjoyed being a controlling manipulative ass. Edit 2, it was Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, not Stadium. Edit 3, obligatory thank you for the rewards. Edit. Edit 4, I've seen a few people doubt the validity of my post or compare it to PH content. Granted, there is nothing I can do to prove I did this. I do have to say, if you didn't go through this with your parents, I envy you. Being a teenager for me was quite the battle with privacy. And of course when you first hit puberty, privacy is of the utmost importance. And also, because I'm still getting comments about it after my edit, I'm going to go ahead my mistake in saying Pokemon Stadium to the correct game. In the 5 years after this story I stopped playing Pokemon, and there are so many titles out there sometimes they tend to run together. And also, yes, my stepdad really did cuss like that. He prided himself on being a parent that didn't give a rat's ass about cussing. Oh, but if I were to cuss back then I'd be in big trouble. It's just one of those cases of do what I say, not what I do. Also, grammar fixes. You're going to assign me to make balloon animals at a site with no kids? Okay, I'll just do my job, by user Shaftway. Way back, in the long ago, in the before times, mid-level chain restaurants would have these people walk around to make balloon animals for kids as they waited for their food. I was a teenager and needed money, so I did this for a while. The restaurant would pay this agency and they would tell us what restaurant to go to and when. Key to this story is that we were not paid. On an average night I'd make around $50 in tips over 3 hours, on special nights it could be as high as $200, but if there were no customers I'd make nothing. After working for several months I must have fallen out of someone's favor, and I got assigned to a restaurant in the business district. I have no idea why they wanted someone making balloon animals there. The key audience was kids and I never saw anyone there under 30. The first night there I made $5, which wasn't even enough to cover mass transit to and from the location. After being assigned there twice in a row I complained, but was told that if I didn't go I'd be banned from any more assignments. Cue the malicious compliance. The next week when I was assigned there, which was the third time in a row, I waited until there were a couple guys at the bar that were tipsy. I go up and ask if they want balloon hats, no charge. They were hesitant, but I promised they'd be good. They agreed, and I got to work. I broke out all of my skills to make these hats that were clearly people in a cage. The people were all pink and had prominent bubbles on the chest and derriere. An inflated balloon tied around the waist made for a bikini bottom, and a carefully tied balloon in their hand made for a bikini top. They asked what it was and I told them a stripper in a cage. They loved it. I got a $20 tip, but more importantly they went to every person in the restaurant to show off their strippers in cages hats. They demanded to talk to the manager to tell him how awesome it was. The super, uptight, fundamentalist manager was majorly pissed and told me to go home early. Agency called, pissed off, but I used my most innocent voice to tell them I was just making what the customer asked for, and I didn't know they'd make a scene. Agency said, well, they banned you from ever coming back. The next week I was back to another $17/HR location. TLDR, I deliberately got myself banned from a shitty worksite by making a risque balloon animal. Edit, yes, it was in the US, it was probably illegal to not pay me, but it was in the 90s, I was a teenager, I didn't know better, and I was happy enough with the money I made most of the time. Won't approve my purchases? Okay, I can work with that, by user Harmon 555. I was a one-man IT shop at a small manufacturer. I had been there for years. I was actually the third employee ever hired and now the company was like 120 people. I was very frugal, but in smart ways. I got a lot done for little money and always was looking out for the company. The owner recognized and respected this. Anyhow, we had gotten big enough where I didn't report to the owner anymore and I was assigned to report to an inexperienced accountant who got her degree from some sketchy online school. She was going to change the world. I used to be able to just buy anything I wanted because the owner knew whenever I asked for a company credit card, that I had already done my homework and it would be good for the company. Well now, if anything was over $500 I had to go through this process with her to justify it. It wouldn't bug me except that she had no real business savvy or common sense. I was just painful to me to try and explain the most obvious things to her and she would fight it just because of power tripping or something. Example, I was trying to justify having at least one computer loaded up and ready to go as a hot spare for when someone's broke. She balked at having $1,500 sitting on a shelf unused. I tried to explain that about once a month someone's computer would break. All she could see was the $1,500 sitting unused most of the time. She couldn't understand the real cost of a broken computer. That the person could no longer do their job effectively. Parts not getting ordered. Jobs not getting expedited. Emails not getting returned. Me having to drop everything to react to this situation, overnighting in parts. The true impact cost to the company was several hundreds of dollars every month. She couldn't see that having a spare would pay for itself in half a year or so. After a half an hour of fighting over this I had an epiphany. I handed her requisition approval forms to her, told her she was right and left. Any purchases under $500 didn't need any approval at all. Now nothing I ever bought was over $500. I didn't buy a spare computer. I bought 3. As parts. And assembled them into computers. Servers, network storage. Why justify to a bean counter who wouldn't understand anyway? Just buy more parts and assemble yourself. Dual monitors for everybody. Bought one at AA time. Bite me, Charmaine.